Hello everyone on the Tastecraft Cookbook channel. Today, we have an autumn recipe and we'll be making a pumpkin pie. This is a poured pie that's prepared in a short crust pastry shell. For the short crust pastry shell, we need 250 grams of flour, 125 grams of cold butter, 1 tablespoon of sugar, a pinch of salt, and some cold water. For the filling, we need at least 400 grams of pumpkin. Also required are a couple of eggs, 200 grams of sugar, including 1 tablespoon for the shell, 200 grams of heavy cream, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of dried ginger powder, and half teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Freshly ground nutmeg, like all spices in general, is always more aromatic. Let's start with the pumpkin. Cut it into 4 pieces and remove the stem. Pumpkins are generally quite hard, so please be careful with the knife. After cutting the pumpkin, it's necessary to remove the pulp and seeds. For the pie, we need pumpkin puree, which can be obtained either by steaming or baking the pumpkin. I prefer baking because it's simpler to execute. Preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit and bake the pumpkin for 1 hour. Now, let's prepare the pie shell. In a mixer bowl, place the flour and add a couple of pinches of salt. Add a tablespoon of sugar. Chop the cold butter into cubes and add it to the bowl. Mix everything until a uniform fine crumb is formed. Add a couple of tablespoons of cold water and mix again. The butter and water should be cold to prevent the butter from overheating and breaking down into milk fat and proteins. During the mixing process, add 1 tablespoon of water at a time until the dough forms into a single lump. In our case, it took only 4 tablespoons of water. Form a ball from the dough and place it in a bag. Send the bag to the refrigerator for 30 minutes to cool further and become less sticky. The pumpkin is browned. Check its readiness with a fork. It's soft inside. It's ready. Let it cool for about 30 minutes. The dough has cooled. Now we'll form the shell. For pies of this type, it's better to use non-separable molds. Take a sheet of parchment, place the mold on top, and mark a circle 5 centimeters larger than the outline of the mold. Cut out the circle along the marks. Crumple the resulting sheet, unfold it, and lay it in the mold. This procedure is necessary for the parchment to adhere as closely as possible to the walls of the mold. In a blender bowl, place 400 grams of the baked pumpkin pulp. Add the cream to the pumpkin. Blend with a blender until smooth for about 30 seconds. Crack the eggs into the mixer bowl. Add sugar. Whisk for a few minutes so the sugar starts to dissolve. Add the pumpkin and cream puree. Add spices, ground cinnamon and ginger powder. Also grate about 1/3 of a nutmeg on a fine grater. Whisk everything until smooth for about a minute. Pour the filling into the shell. Lightly tap the mold on the table to expel air bubbles. Place the mold in an oven preheated to 180 degrees Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit and bake for 35 minutes. The ready pie should have a light brown surface and be firm. Let it cool for 30 minutes at room temperature. Carefully remove the cooled pie with the parchment from the mold and transfer it to a serving dish. You can remove the parchment or cut the pie right on it. The finished pie combines a tender, creamy filling inside a crispy shell. A great sweetness for cold autumn days.